Angelica Pickles is a character who could really be described with many different words. The biggest of which on my mind at the moment, though, is untrustworthy. Time and time again, over the decades that we've seen the Rugrats going on adventures, Angelica has been cunning and manipulative pretty much the whole way through. We've seen her telling Phil and Lil that their parents have a favorite kid and that the other is the reject. We've seen her tell Tommy that he's going to disappear forever if his baby brother keeps being gifted his hand-me-downs. And we've even seen her go as far as helping an evil French woman attempt to manipulate Chucky's dad's entire life in the name of their own gain. And to be honest, all of that is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to it than that. However, today on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're going to check out a very early episode of Rugrats that really helped set the precedent and told us plain as day that Angelica was never to be trusted. Before we get into it though, thank you so much for clicking on this video and for being a part of my YouTube journey. Seriously, I can't thank you enough for being here right now. You all are the absolute best, and I hope that you're having a wonderful day. If you aren't yet, please consider subscribing and maybe dropping a like if you enjoy the video, as it helps me a ton and it tells YouTube that other people should watch this video too. Again, you all are the absolute best, and thank you so much for being here, and with that being said, let's get right into it. Today, we're checking out the Season 1 episode, The Trial.
Open up, Tommy! Oh, Betty, that was Mr. Fluffles, Tommy's favorite lamp.
Tommy immediately starts crying hysterically while his mom tries to console him. Meanwhile, Betty picks up the rest of the babies and puts them in their playpen. Just then, Angelica comes around the corner asking what happened and saying that she was just taking her nap when she heard a loud sound. Dee Dee sets Tommy down in the playpen with his friends as she tells Angelica that one of the babies accidentally knocked over the special clown lamp that Tommy's dad made for him. As Betty and Dee Dee continue about their business, Betty explains that she actually saw a lamp just like that at a baby store recently, suggesting that maybe they should go see if it's still there.
Why my lamp? Why? He never hurt anybody. He just shined his light on stuff and smiled.
Quit belly aching. Forget about your dumb old clown lamp. Your mom's in the other room buying you a new one anyway.
I don't want a new one. I want my old one. Tommy, it's God. Then I want to know who did it. Which one of you broke my lamp?
Things immediately get very tense as all of the babies look at one another in a panic, right as Angelica walks up to Tommy from behind and says that there's one easy way that they can get to the bottom of this. They can just have a trial. Of course, Tommy doesn't even know what that means, so Angelica says that she'll just show him. We see her begin to move things around in the playpen to organize a makeshift courtroom.
Since it was your clown lamp, you get to be the judge.
The fudge?
No, judge! Can't you babies talk right? And here's your gravel. Just hit it on the table and say, order, order.
Order, order.
Not yet! See these teddy bears? They're the jerky.
The jury?
Not the jury, the jerky!
Angelica explains that when everything is all done, the jerky whisper to each other for a bit, then someone goes to jail. Of course, she says that she's going to be the prosecutor because she's the smartest. Phil and Lil try to object, saying that they want to be the prosecutors, but Angelica strong-arms them into submission via threats, as you would expect. Angelica starts to pace back and forth, forcing the trial to begin regardless of anyone else's opinions, deciding that she's going to call Phil and Lil to the stand as her first witnesses.
Now raise your hands. Do you swear to tell Ruth, all Ruth, and nothing but Ruth, so help you Bob? Just say you do.
You do.
Now say your names.
But Angelica, you know our names.
Say them for the jerky.
Phil.
Lil. Where were you on the night of June 6th? Huh? Just answer the question, yes or no.
Yes, no.
Aha! So you did break Tommy's lamp.
Phil and Lil defend themselves, saying that they would never do anything like that to Tommy, but Angelica implies that they're lying. The two go back and forth until Angelica demands that they tell the court exactly what happened in their own words.
We ran over to the lamp and started playing Ring Round the Rosie.
We went round and around.
And wrong.
And then we let go.
We ran and we ran.
And we ran some more.
Until suddenly, we heard it.
And that's all we saw. A very good story. But it isn't the whole story, is it?
Both Phil and Lil are confused and feeling really panicked because they did tell their truth, yet Angelica is still calling their bluff in a very hostile manner. Angelica continues to grill them and put pressure on them, saying that there's another version of the story that they aren't telling.
You did start by playing a nice game of Ring Round the Rosie. But soon, the game stopped being so nice. Faster and faster you spin, and even faster until you really got dizzy. And then you let go. But when you did, something you didn't expect happened. You knocked the lamp! So you ran away, and you didn't stop running until you heard a crash.
Phil and Lil both begin to cry and beg for Tommy to believe them, and they even both admit that they did bump the lamp, but they didn't break it. At that admission, Angelica agrees that maybe they are telling the truth. Besides, there was another person in the room who could have framed them.
Chucky? No! There's a perpetrator! I call Chucky to the stand! Do you swear to tell Ruth and all that stuff?
Do I have to?
You can tell he did it.
I didn't break it. Just tell your story, Chucky.
In Chucky's version of the story, he's sitting by himself watching Phil and Lil play Ring Around the Rosie because it looked too dangerous for him to want to play. Both Phil and Lil end up running off just like they said they did, and when he realizes that he was left alone, he starts to panic.
Then I heard a noise from behind me. I turned around, and there it was. A monster!
Chucky runs for his life with the monster in hot pursuit directly behind him. He makes his way to the couch and he hides his head underneath it, which is where his story ends. Of course, right out the gate, Angelica is implying that isn't the whole story and that there's an important part that Chucky left out in his retelling of the tale.
You started thinking about bad ideas, didn't you, Chucky?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, Chucky. That lamp. You wanted to push it more, much more, didn't you, Chucky?
No!
Yes! You wanted to push it till it fell over. You wanted to break the clown lamp.
It's true!
Chucky sits there on the stand with everyone staring at Spotlight, and he cries his eyes out, saying that it's true. He really did want to break that lamp because it was just so terrifying that he couldn't handle it. He thought the lamp was scary, so he wanted to destroy it.
I'm bad, Tommy. Real bad.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jerky, Chucky broke the lamp.
No! I thought about breaking the lamp. I even wanted to, but I didn't do it.
Liar!
Tommy calls for order in the courtroom and he puts a stop to Angelica's accusations. He says that if Chucky says he didn't break the lamp, then he didn't do it. This leaves all of the babies confused, however. If Chucky didn't do it, then who could have? As everybody is pondering who could possibly be responsible for this if it wasn't any of them, Tommy decides to take a step back, and instead of focusing on what they don't know, he decides to take tally of what they do know. He knows Phil and Lil couldn't have done it because they were in the other room. He knows Chucky couldn't have done it because his head was under a pillow. And he knows Angelica couldn't have done it because she was taking her afternoon nap. Tommy realizes that only leaves himself, which doesn't make any sense because he was eating when all of this happened. Just then, though, it hits him like a ton of bricks.
Wait a minute. Angelica, didn't you already take a nap this morning before you came over?
I took 2 naps today.
But Angelica, if you were taking a nap, how'd you know how fast we ran around the Rosie?
Well, and how do you know we hit the lamp when we ran away?
Everybody begins to connect the dots, and Angelica sits there continuing to lie and make up more excuses. Meanwhile, Tommy has a huge moment of overwhelming disappointment when he realizes that he's been blatantly and purposefully wronged by a member of his own family.
You mean you broke my lamp?
Oh, brother. Do I have to tell you babies everything? All right, I admit it. I'm the one who broke the lamp, and I don't care.
But why, Angelica? Why did you do such a bad thing?
Angelica tells the story in detail. It all started in the hall when she was looking for a crayon so she could draw on the walls and blame it on Tommy. As she looked through the house, she saw Chucky sitting there looking terrified while Phil and Lil were playing a game. Nearby, she spied Tommy's Halloween mask, so she took it and put it on, planning to attack Chucky and scare the life out of him. Her plan worked just as she wanted it to, resulting in Chucky running away in fear.
That's when I saw it. That stupid clown lamp. With its stupid face and its goofy nose and that stupid smile. I want to make sure he'd never smile again. That's right, I did it. But you know what? There's nothing you babies can't do about it, 'cause you can't talk.
As Angelica stands there laughing maniacally and celebrating the fact that she was able to break one of her cousin's favorite toys and terrorize everyone in the process, she begins to jump backward and dance, happily singing that she did it. Of course, in her brazen display of rubbing the babies' faces in what she did, both Dee Dee and Betty end up overhearing Angelica, and of course, as you'd expect, she immediately changes her tone, saying now that she didn't do it. Unfortunately for her though, both of them heard everything, and there's no way that she's talking her way out of this one. Dee Dee picks her right up and they take her to the kitchen for her to sit with them until her father gets there.
What do you think they'll do to her?
Do you think she'll go to jail?
I don't know.
No! Not the chair! Not the chair!
Does this mean the persecutor did it? Yep. I guess the persecutor's the perpetrator this time.
Okay, dude, this one hurt so bad. This episode is straight up painful on multiple levels, but with that being said, this one was really important. It told us a lot, and it really showed us everything that we needed to know as far as Angelica is concerned. This episode wholeheartedly showed us her true manipulative nature. This started in the very beginning too. Directly at that moment when we see her walking around the corner, having been seemingly woken up from her nap. At the time we first see it though, little do we know she's straight up lying through her teeth. We have to admit, she puts on a pretty good act too. At first, it was pretty believable that she really was waking up from a nap. But like at the end, when the big reveal happens, you end up reanalyzing all of Angelica's actions throughout this one, and you realize just how cunning and manipulative she is. You look back on everything that's happened, and you realize just how dark it is that this 3-year-old straight up orchestrated all of this, and framed multiple people in the process. We really have to talk about how awful it is that Angelica suggested that they should have a trial to figure it out. Then, when Tommy curiously asks what a trial even is, instead of explaining it and leaving it up to him whether or not to go through with it, Angelica just takes matters into her own hands and gets right into it, making the trial start right after setting up, before Tommy even knows what he's agreeing to. This right here is just incredibly calculated and conning behavior, especially for such a little kid. I mean, she knows exactly what she's doing too. By suggesting to the easily manipulated baby that she knows the only way to get to the bottom of this, she's giving herself an immediate fast track to place the blame on literally anybody she chooses, when she knows good and well that she is the one who's guilty here. In the act of Angelica appointing someone who has no idea what's going on as judge, making the stuffed animals be the jury, and of course she herself the prosecutor, as well as basically being in charge of the whole thing, she's essentially making herself judge, jury, and executioner. Like, she blatantly forces her way into this position as well, and the babies don't even see it as a red flag or anything. Angelica blatantly uses her strong-arming tactics to refuse Phil and Lil the right to take part in the courtroom procedure at all, and essentially uses hostility towards anyone in question to pressure them into confessing to something that they didn't even do. Meanwhile, nobody put her under a microscope until the very end. She jumped through a lot of hoops to set herself up in a position where she could point all of the fingers and nobody felt like they had the authority to point a finger at her. And of course, the only person there who did have the authority to call her into question pretty much had no idea what was even going on here. Now, I definitely have to talk about how despicable Angelica was when it was time for her to place the blame on Chucky. When it came to Phil and Lil, she hurled accusations and implied plenty, but when it was Chucky's turn, she straight up called him a liar and said that he did it even before he answered any questions. The reason for this, of course, is because she couldn't get Phil and Lil to take responsibility for what she did. So she made the decision that she needed to lay it on really heavy with Chucky. Not only because he's an easy target, and in her really laying into him, she's pretty much guaranteeing without a shadow of a doubt that he will fold and confess to something he didn't do in an effort to not have to face the confrontation, but also because she didn't have anyone else to try to blame after him. Chucky was her last bastion of hope to pin this on someone else and not have to take the blame for her own actions. Angelica knew that if she couldn't get him to take responsibility for it, she would be the only one left to take the blame. Of course, not to mention Angelica digging her heels in and continuing to lie, even when everyone had started to figure out that she was the one who was responsible for the broken lamp all along. She was caught red-handed and still tried to lie, but when she knew that all bets were off and there was no way that she was lying her way out of this one, she just straight up ripped the band-aid off forcefully. I mean, that moment where the mask came off and her true colors were exposed for everyone to see, things got very maniacal on her behalf. She admits that she did it on purpose, that she would do it again, and that she has zero remorse for it. This right here really was a huge moment. This was her proving to the babies that they will never be able to trust her because she has the ability within her to use the fact that they can't tell their parents what she's doing to her advantage. She may not always jump to do that, but she has the ability to do that, and she just proved to them that she could very well do it again. Angelica really is just a detestable person, and boy, do the writers do a great job of rubbing our faces in it. I mean, that moment when she was getting way too cocky just had me wanting to punch a hole in my TV screen. She's just so excited about the fact that she got away with what she did and nobody can do anything about it. She's dancing and basically yelling to the world that she did something awful. She's just so proud of herself for it too. All the meanwhile, she doesn't stop for a second to think that anyone could potentially overhear her very loud acceptance of guilt. It really just drives me nuts to see that she had the audacity to do what she did, the cunning to betray her own family, and of course the cockiness to gloat and sing about how she did it all too. With this being such an early episode, these are all actions that played a pivotal role in establishing and understanding as viewers just how awful of a person that Angelica is. Now, I definitely have to take a moment to touch on how Angelica's only punishment was sitting in a high chair. Dee Dee and Betty took her to the kitchen, put her in the high chair, and that was it. And rightfully so. With them not being her parents, they shouldn't be the ones punishing her any further than making her do nothing until her dad gets there. That honestly makes perfect sense. However, my issue with all of this is that you and I both know good and well that Drew isn't gonna do shit when he picks up Angelica. He is a spineless doormat of a father, and he's probably just gonna buy her some ice cream on the way home, and when they do get home, he's probably gonna send her to her room to eat the ice cream and watch TV while she thinks about what she did. Honestly, I just can't stand parents like Drew, and boy does that remind me I'm overdue on some videos about trash Nicktoons dads, aren't I? Now, circling back to what I said earlier about how Angelica put on a good show pretending like she was woken up from a nap, on the other side of that coin, there were actually some indicators that she was the one who had done it all along. First of all, Angelica telling Tommy to stop crying and completely shutting down his totally valid feelings when he was initially upset about the lamp breaking. This right here was our first inkling that it may have been her. The complete and utter disregard for Tommy's feelings about his favorite lamp having been destroyed is a huge indicator that she doesn't care about the situation, which, as the dominoes fall, could lead to us believing that she's guilty. However, I definitely imagine that a good chunk of us may not have been considering that when we saw this as kids, because these actions are pretty run-of-the-mill for Angelica. Like, whether she was the one who did it or not, she still probably would have had that same brazen attitude towards Tommy having feelings because she's a calloused jerk and she completely lacks empathy. Outside of Angelica, though, there was definitely some effort made on the writer's part to genuinely make us feel like Chucky could have done it. I mean, at first when Tommy was really upset about it, Chucky was crying as well. Of course, one could look at his crying as an admission of guilt that he's holding back. However, if we keep in mind that Chucky is a very empathetic and sensitive kid, it quickly dispels that worry. It would make sense that Chucky would cry when Tommy is hurt because that's his best friend and they care about each other's feelings. Then, of course, we certainly need to touch on Tommy's actions towards the start of this one. I mean, we definitely have to acknowledge that at the top, his hurt feelings are completely justified. He loved that toy and it broke. So, of course, he's gonna be hurt and sad about it. However, it does need to be said that him pointing the finger and asking which one of his friends broke his lamp was completely out of character for him. Tommy is usually pretty level-headed, for the most part, when it comes to situations, especially those where he isn't sure if what happened was an accident or not. It's one of those where it had me wondering, like, if someone did accept responsibility, had it been an accident, what would he have done? Would there be forgiveness? Would he have wanted them punished? I get wanting to generally, know who did it, but honestly, it's hard to get a read on Tommy's intentions in the heat of the moment here. In all reality, though, moments like these would happen with Tommy throughout the series, and they would serve as an excellent reminder that nobody's perfect. Tommy is human, obviously, and furthermore, he's a baby. His emotional regulation hasn't even really begun to develop yet, so the fact that he's as calm and level-headed as he is really speaks a lot to his ingrained personality traits. Honestly, I think those probably come from his mother, Dee Dee. I mean, she's definitely the most calm and emotionally aware out of his parents. Of course, we can't miss talking about that ending though. It hurt so much hearing the pain in Tommy's voice when he felt the crushing defeat of someone that he's supposed to be able to trust betraying him on purpose. When he connected the dots that Angelica went out of her way to destroy something that he loved just because she never wanted it to smile again, it clearly showed him an angle of life that his baby brain had never considered. I imagine Tommy was raised to trust his family, so to have something like this prove to you that instinct is one you might need to abandon is definitely very jarring. And I mean, just the incredibly selfish nature of Angelica and how much it hurts realizing that you have to spend the rest of your life holding a family member at arm's length because they've proven time and time again to have negative intentions. That's just a ton to process, especially for a baby who struggled to connect these dots to begin with. In closing, I really wanted to take a moment to at least touch on one single lighthearted thing, and that would be the irony of Angelica correcting the babies and scolding them for not talking right as it pertains to the courtroom terms. Like them thinking it was fudge and not judge. I mean, that was pretty funny, and it got a good chuckle out of me. But then, of course, not too long after, I'd find myself rolling my eyes when the babies pronounce jury correctly, yet Angelica tells them that they're wrong, saying that it's actually jerky. The irony is just so silly here, and I appreciate it for what it's worth. But what do you guys think? Was this episode a huge point in forming your opinions of Angelica as a character? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. Of course, massive shout out with all the love in the world to my friends in the True 90s Kids tier on Patreon. You guys are the best ever, and I genuinely appreciate every single one of you so much. If you enjoyed this video, you should totally check out this video on the left about a dark episode of Hey Arnold that tackled psychological terror. Or, hey, if that's not your cup of tea, that's totally fine. You could totally check out this awesome video on the right. If you enjoyed this video though, make sure you drop a like and let me know what you think down in the comments, and as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.